Big changes are happening in the world of economics and politics that will impact all of our lives in the years ahead. The group of major countries known as BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are growing stronger together, doing more trade between themselves and gaining more influence globally. This makes many Western countries and leaders nervous as this new group is now challenging their long-standing dominance. In this video, you'll get to know why the BRICS are expanding so rapidly by working together and what their key advantages are. We will discuss how their growing economic might and alternative financial systems are seen as threats to the old Western powers. The BRICS alliance between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally emerged in 2009, a decade after economist Jim O'Neill coined the term BRIC to describe these rapidly growing emerging economies. After years of steadily increasing trade and investment links, the foreign ministers of the four original BRIC states held their first official summit in 2009 in Russia, recognizing their rising power and importance as a bloc. This group was formalized as BRICS with the addition of South Africa in 2010. The motivation behind forming this new global alliance was the recognition that these countries were uniquely positioned to provide alternative perspectives to the Western-dominated IMF, World Bank, and UN Security Council. Their shared experiences undergoing rapid economic growth and development gave them common ground to speak as a cohesive voice pushing for a greater say in global governance institutions. This happened even as their collective GDP and populations started rivaling that of the G7 nations. Coming together as BRICS, therefore, marked a pivotal point symbolizing the economic and political ascendancy of non-Western powers in the 21st century. Since 2010, the strategic partnership amongst these major emerging economies has greatly accelerated through several key factors. Over the past few decades, extremely high GDP growth rates in all BRICS states formed the foundations for increased wealth and global influence. China's unprecedented economic expansion since the 1980s, with an average 10% annual growth for 30 years, enabled transformative development. This brought over 800 million Chinese citizens out of poverty into a new middle class, while making China the second largest economy globally today. The structure of BRICS economies complements each other uniquely. Brazil and Russia's extensive commodities, minerals, oil, and gas reserves found ready markets in fast industrializing India and China. In turn, Indian and Chinese consumer goods and new technologies gained footholds in untapped South American and African markets, enabling South-South trade. This symbiotic economic relationship made intensifying trade volumes amongst BRICS members a win-win scenario. Also, deliberate collaboration and institution building reinforced BRICS interdependencies and accelerated joint growth. Establishing the new Development Bank and Contingent Reserve Arrangement as alternatives to the US-dominated IMF and World Bank system marked a move towards financial self-reliance. These new mechanisms, such as infrastructure funding, better serve developing countries' interests. Deals to conduct trade in domestic currencies rather than US dollars reduced transaction costs and overcame reliance on Western banking systems. These interlocking factors of high individual growth trajectories, complementary economic structures, and intentional partnership formation enabled the rapid expansion of combined BRICS influence. Projections indicate BRICS could account for nearly 50% of global GDP by 2050. This seismic shift in economic power eastwards and southwards from the 20th century transatlantic order is steadily underway thanks to the rise of this alliance. With the foundations and mechanisms enabling BRICS' rapid growth now firmly in place, the alliance shifted focus to consolidating its influence and proving the sustainability of development models differing from Western liberal ideals. Leveraging their enormous combined assets and self-reliance measures, BRICS pose a formidable challenger model to Western economic and political supremacy. Most fundamentally, the staggering demographic weight of BRICS economies, encompassing over 40% of the world's population, translates to unrivaled human capital and consumer markets. China and India alone comprise almost a third of total global citizens. The The working age population across BRICS exceeds 1.1 billion, a youthful, skilled workforce powering manufacturing and services sectors. These massive young populaces are also fast urbanizing, creating a thriving new generation of middle-class consumers eagerly soaking up goods and gadgets to improve lifestyles. Likewise, BRICS together account for about 25% of the planet's total landmass, brimming with natural riches, minerals, metals, fossil fuels, and more. Vast energy reserves in Russia and offshore Brazil, plus abundant coal from South Africa, offer invaluable inputs that fuel Chinese production. Russia is already amongst the top oil exporters to China, while Brazil handles soft commodities and iron ore trade, securing Chinese metal refining capacities. India also imports around 80% of its fuel from Russia, softening the impacts of supply volatilities elsewhere. Technological prowess within the bloc, too, is accelerating through intensive upskilling programs and cutting-edge advancements. India's globally renowned IT sector and elite engineering talent help meet Brazil, Russia, and South Africa's software expertise shortages, enabling financial inclusion and internet access goals. China leads across the bloc in renewable energy, electric vehicles, telecom, and computing hardware applications. The new development bank, with total capitalization now touching $100 billion, finances infrastructure development that helps unlock socioeconomic opportunities for citizens while fueling trade connectivity. Over $30 billion in loans have already been deployed on sustainable transport, clean energy access growth in India, renewable capacity in South Africa, and South-South cooperation. By safeguarding funding access without reliance on bodies like the World Bank or Asian Development Bank dominated by Western doctrines, BRICS sustain tailored solutions benefiting local contexts. Together, these core advantages, comprising sheer human power, abundant material resources, and financial autonomy, demonstrates BRICS' resilience and credentials as an alternate center of gravity, reshaping global order away from 20th century unipolar economic governance. Western economies' long-held monopoly over trade flows, development capital, and global institutions stands directly contested by this defiant model gaining traction in vast emerging world regions. Take note that in an exciting update on New Year's Day, 2024, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Ethiopia officially joined the BRICS alliance after accepting invitations last August. The 5 new Middle East and African entrants joined founding BRICS members Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, massively boosting the group's economic and diplomatic strengths. Regional powerhouses Saudi Arabia and Iran had been courted for years before agreeing to set aside differences and embrace South-South cooperation. Egypt provides a gateway to North Africa, while the UAE and Ethiopia represent the Horn of Africa, expanding BRICS' breadth as truly a global force. After seeing the cooperation and growth within BRICS so far, what comes next for this powerful group over the next 10 to 20 years? Many top economists and political experts worldwide think BRICS will keep outpacing and outsmarting the US and Europe to become true global superpowers before 2050. Some experts believe BRICS economies can keep growing steadily at 4 to 5% every year on average, much faster than the G7 nations struggling with aging populations. Reports show China and India will likely surpass America to have the first and second biggest economies very soon. By 2030, India could be number 3 behind the US and China due to its huge English-speaking technology workforce. One forecast estimates BRICS together will triple their share of world GDP by 2050, adding a gigantic $34 trillion in new wealth. This means America, Britain, France, or Germany will no longer be the richest, most influential countries. University of Toronto professor Julian Schofield boldly claimed, by 2045, none of the G7 will rank among the top 7 economies, since Asian powerhouses like China and India will dominate those positions. With economic power comes political power and leadership in global matters like trade, climate, human rights, and more. BRICS nations using their leverage together in international groups gives them a much louder voice than if Brazil or South Africa tried to speak up alone. So even if there is instability in individual BRICS partners, the alliance means the group keeps getting more dominant overall. The Asia Global Institute director, Greg Austin, said that while China leads now, India is ramping up fast to take over as the next Asian juggernaut. He explains that India has massive consumer demand just waking up, tech talent to rival Silicon Valley, and even enough solar energy potential to power the whole planet. Austin added that combining each BRICS country's unique strengths, Brazilian farms feeding Russian growth or China processing South African minerals, could unlock trillions in new wealth. Famed expert Peter Zayan explained that the BRICS partnership effectively shields member nations from external interference or intimidation attempts, unlike developing countries vulnerable to Western bullying alone. Collective security ensures Brazil withstands predatory trade practices from the US and South Africa avoids EU financial coercion. This cooperative brotherhood, protecting each other, is the key ingredient cementing BRICS as the voice for all emerging economies. So even if Brazil slips into recession again or Russia faces sanctions, experts bet on the alliance model, keeping BRICS ascending together. The world's economic and political power is clearly moving back towards Asia, Latin America, and Africa after centuries of European and American dominance, an unstoppable shift powered by nearly half the planet's people and resources. The writing is clear on the wall. BRICS is transforming the global landscape. How are historic Western powers reacting to the alliance growing tighter and gaining unbelievable influence so quickly? And can anything stop this Eastern and Southern shift in power now? Many policy experts say US, UK, and EU leaders long dismissed the rise of BRICS, mocking ideas that upstart nations like India or Brazil could ever rival their mighty economic empires. They benefited enormously from the World Bank and IMF systems they designed, requiring all trades to use the dollar or euro, enabling unmatched prosperity for 75 years. Naturally, they seek desperately to prolong this Western-dominated order. But the reality is dawning. The momentum is impossible to ignore as BRICS hurdles toward equal or surpassing the G7's prestige. The prospect of renminbi or rupee transactions replacing petrodollars terrifies Washington. Solar panels gracing Indian rooftops undermine European electricity conglomerates. Graduates from Brazilian coding academies replacing American tech talent strike fear into Silicon Valley magnates. Clearly, Western interests are anxious. Many attempts underway seem to stifle BRICS expansion. For instance, multiple global trade disputes have recently appeared, targeting China specifically. This is not a coincidence, as crashing Chinese exports could create domestic unrest, jeopardizing growth ambitions before they create a parallel financial ecosystem. Likewise, the U.S. frequently meddles in Latin America, from bankrolling Brazilian opposition campaigns to backing coups against leftist governments in Bolivia or Venezuela who ally with BRICS ideals. Stoking turmoil in resource-rich zones tries limiting South-South cooperation, threatening Western mining firms. Military escalations on Russia's doorstep also allow sanctions hammering Moscow's ability to sell oil and gas to fellow BRICS economies like energy-hungry India and China. However, BRICS partners have demonstrated remarkable resilience and defensive capabilities, protecting each other from external subversion. Their contingency fund shields economies in crisis. India and China sustain Russian energy exports despite U.S. obstacles. Coal from South Africa fuels Chinese power plants when Australian supplies are blocked. Such solidarity and circulating capital growth internally appear to be working. Of course, future fortunes vary. China must escape demographic decline, and India must improve literacy and gender rights. Brazil and South Africa require election transparency. Terror threats challenge all. Western adversarial actions could yet derail the bloc. Some economists believe decoupling trade and financial systems takes decades, so U.S. dollar dominance could linger if military backing persists. So, while Western giants anxiously scratch for 20th century supremacy through protectionism, misinformation, and interventionism, $34 trillion BRICS economies seem set to reshape this century's possibilities more equitably, even at a slower pace than enthusiasts hope. The rise of the BRICS alliance is truly reshaping our world order in front of our eyes. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, came together, recognizing their growing power as emerging giants. Though still facing significant development challenges, their cooperation accelerated growth and made advanced Western economies sit up and take notice. Experts strongly predict surging Asian economic muscle, reinforced by interdependencies with Latin America and Africa's vast inputs, will make established G7 giants slip down the ranks as antiquated 20th century relics. A new world order shaped more by BRICS solidarity and more South-South engagement. The exact impacts are still unfolding, with much uncertainty and adaptation ahead across trade, tech standards, climate action, and financial flows. But a long-term realignment of influence away from former colonial masters towards the emerging majority of humankind seems inevitable. This new BRICS alliance needs close watching as its next chapter promises even more significant disruption or hope. Are you optimistic or worried about this global power shift? How might it impact jobs, lifestyles, and opportunities where you live? We would love to hear your thoughts on BRICS expansion in the comments below. Encourage us to keep making videos like this for you by liking this video and subscribing to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you in our next video.